Okay, before we start, I actually almost always prefer to cut my patterns, to print them twice if they're cut on the fold, and just mirror them so that I don't have to cut mine on the fold. I write them that way because I know a lot of people, that's what they do. So for those people who like to do that, just print a copy of your pattern once and align the pieces, and what you'll have is just from here over. If you're like me and you like to double up so that you don't have to fold the fabric when you cut it, you can print it twice and mirror it so that it looks like this. So this is my main piece. I'll be cutting that out of my vinyl. This is my casing piece right here, which again, I just cut two of and aligned them. That's going to be cut out of my vinyl. Two of these. This is my lining piece right here, which again, if you just print the pattern once, you'll just have this half and you'll cut it on the fold of your fabric. But if you're like me, that's what it will look like. Zipper pocket piece right here. You can just print this and either cut it on the fold of the fabric or even just cut two pieces this size. It won't matter one way or the other. It's up to you and what area of fabric you have to work with, I guess. You're also going to want to cut one key ring clip out of your lining. That's this piece. And you're going to want your strap connector piece, which we'll be cutting two of, and your stabilizer piece if you're using the magnetic snap option. If you're not using the magnetic snap option for the closure, you don't need to cut this stabilizer piece out. And then finally, you should have cut out this little pleating piece, which is not a piece that's going to be used to cut any fabric, but is going to be used for reference as you're pleating your main piece. Okay, so that's everything you should have cut to get started.
So first up, I have two exterior pieces cut out of my vinyl or your leather or your canvas or whatever you're using. I think I mentioned in the pattern that vinyl and leather are what this was meant for. I did have one tester do it in canvas and it turned out really beautiful. So choose your fabric based on what you think your machine can handle, but I have two of these. There you go. Those are my two exterior main pieces. I have two exterior casing pieces that look like this. And I have two out of the vinyl, basically your strap connectors, what you'll be putting your spring gate rings on, or your D-rings, or whatever you're choosing to put on these. I have spring gate rings in the pattern. And then out of the lining, I have two of your lining pieces cut. They should look like this. One zipper pocket, unless you're the type of person that doesn't want to use one piece, you'll want to use two. Basically, what I like to do when I install a zipper pocket, excuse me, is to just install it as one piece and then sew it around and then cut it into two to use this opening later to turn the bag. But I know a lot of people that would rather just have two pieces just cut it in half if that's the case, and you'll have two pieces this size. Okay, and I've already prepped my zipper rectangle on there. You can use the pattern piece as a template. I cut out the rectangle for the zipper and then just traced inside there like a stencil, so you know where to place your zipper for later. And then you should have cut your key fob clip for the inside of the bag. Okay, and so from there, we are going to start by preparing the frame casings. Now I am using a frame in mind, but I give the option to use magnetic snap. If you don't have a flex frame or don't want to use a flex frame, sometimes they're a little hard to come by. I kind of go in detail in the pattern as to the benefits of using one versus the other, the snap versus the frame. I'm using a frame today, so I'm not going to be attaching the snap. So I'm going to follow the instructions from, I think, step 3B. All right, we're prepping the casings. You are going to fold in half and then give a little snip right at the center marking there, so you know where the center is on both of those. I already snipped this one, but you would snip right there, okay? All right, so I have a little snip there in the center of one of the long edges and a little snip there, okay. If you're making the magnetic snap version, it's at this point that you're going to find the center line across this way, and then per the pattern instructions and the picture, you're going to place your stabilizer there and your magnetic snap, install your magnetic snap right in the center there. Okay, so on yours, you'll see a center line. You'll place your stabilizer lined up against that center line with the bottom of the stabilizer lined up against it, and then you'll place your snap through the stabilizer in the center. Okay, but for me, since I'm just using the frame, I'm going to move on to step 3B, and I'm going to use my leather tape to fold in the long or the short edges, the short edges of my casing pieces. Like that. I think I say in the pattern that if you don't have leather tape, you can use Wonder Clips, but you should get leather tape. Just saying. Okay. Here we go. Fold it in 1/4 of an inch. We have the short edges folded in on both pieces, and now we're just going to stitch along that to hold those in place. Okay, we are going to now top stitch our little 1/4 inch folds there. That is the sides stitched, the short edges stitched for the casing. And now you want to fold the casing in half with the wrong sides together. And stitch it shut. As close to the edge as you can, as close to that raw edge. You're gonna like baste it shut. Basting, by the way, what I mean when I say that, is a long stitch length, and I probably about 1/8 inch from the edge, no more than that. Just to keep it, although, you know, it would help if there we go. Okay. Here we go. Stuck. There we go. All right, that's one. And now you have your tube for one side of your frame. And if you're using a magnetic snap, yours should look like this with a snap centered in there. Now your two casings are done. We're moving on to step 4, where we prepare the strap connectors. Again, leather tape is helpful for this process, but it's fine if you don't have it on this. This is not really necessary. You could also just use Wonder Clips, or even sometimes when I'm really lazy, I just fold them and hold it shut and then fold it over while I'm holding it shut and then do it again. It's not hard. Okay, so there's one snap connector, or I should say strap connector. And now listen, if you're doing D-rings or rings that don't open, if you're not using specifically spring gate rings, now is the time to put your hardware on. I'm using spring gate rings, so I'm just going to sew them shut. And the other thing I'll say about this is that I'm not top stitching along the fold, that longer fold. And my reasoning for that is that I think I mentioned in the pattern, but these get sewn in so close to their fold that there's no way this is coming undone. And I like the look of it without the stitching, because the whole thing has this sort of plush, cushy, you know, look to it with the pleats and everything. And I kind of like to keep that look going on the snap connectors, or the strap connectors. I don't know why I keep calling them snap connectors, but anyway, so you could stitch that down if it makes you nervous, or if you just like the way it looks stitched. But I'm just going to do what I'm doing and fold it over and stitch it the one time. So now you have your 2 little strap connectors and your 2 casings, and we're moving on to pleating. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Folding my exterior main piece so that it is, I can find the center. There we go. And snipping that center. Okay, I'm trying really hard to find an angle that will make this really clear and easy. So you're kind of looking at this from above the way I'm looking at it right now. This is one of my exterior pieces, wrong side up, facing up in front of me, the top of the piece, that longer top edge up here, the bottom edge down here, just like you're standing over it, okay? So from each edge now, I want you to take your little pleating card, and once you do this bag like once or twice, you don't have to go slow, and you don't have to go mirror every other, you don't have to go through all of this. You'll actually just like make your marks and pleat. But to start with, just to make sure you're getting it right, you're going to, well, you want your ruler just for the first one, because you want to go 1 inch in. Here, I don't even need my ruler. And then 1.5 inches in. And I like, when I do this, to snip my little marks, because that makes folding on them easier later, if I can snip in the right place, that is. Okay, so 1 inch in from the top left corner, 1.5 inch in from the top left corner, and then the same thing. There you go. 1 inch in, and then 1.5 inches in, just like that. And then you're going to snip those marks. And I mean, you don't have to, you can just fold at the marks if you want. I just find it easier to make little snips. Okay, now on both of those sides, what you're going to do is you're going to fold over at your furthest in mark, or clip. See, snipping it makes it fold flat and helps that a lot. And now your other mark, your 1 inch mark, will be on top here. And then you're going to fold back at that 1-inch mark. And now you have your first pleat. Clip it in place. Now you're going to want to do the same thing. You're going to fold at your furthest end mark or clip like that. And then you're going to fold back at the 1-inch marking that you made. There we go. And you should have a mirrored pleats on either side now. Your first 2 pleats should be done and look like, this is a weird angle, look like that. Okay. Now, from this point on, you just need your card. You don't need a ruler. You're going to use the same measurements over and over again. And I do mirror back and forth in the pattern just so that you can keep track, because what you're going to do is you're going to trade folds, mirror these folds till you reach the center and can't go anymore. And you're going to go, excuse me, 2 inches in. So from the left, I'm taking my pleating card and I'm starting it at my last fold, the fold that I just made. And I'm making a mark here, right? And then another mark at 1.5 inches. So you're coming in, you've got a 1.5 inch and a 2 inch. 2 inches, 1.5 inches. If I snip, can you see? Yep. If I snip there, if I snip there, now I'm going to fold at the 2 inch, just like that, and then fold back. I got to stand up. Can you see? Yeah. And then fold back at the, hard to do without getting in the way of the video, at the 1.5 inch. So now you have your second pleat on the left side and it looks like that. And then you're going to mirror that and do the exact same thing, just the opposite way, going inward. So now you're 2 inches in from this fold. And actually, let's turn it this way so you have the 1/2 inch mark. There you go. So 2 inches in from this fold. And then a 1/2 inch back from there. Snip. Snip. Now fold at your 2 inch marking like so, and then fold back at the 1/2 inch that you made. Clip it in place. Just like that. Now you've mirrored your 2 pleats that way. You're going to keep doing that until you can't go any further on either side. Like once you reach that middle section or that middle marking, that center marking, and the only thing that you could do is go over it. If you fold it again, then you know you've done enough on that side. All right, let's see what we have here. Okay, if you turn this over, you have a center pleat, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 full pleats after that. Okay, and then if you use your measuring tape, if you have measuring tape, to measure this out, just real quick. I'm seeing mine's about 15, which I think it was like in the pattern, maybe 15 and a quarter. I can't remember, but this is about right. It's kind of an estimate. So that's that, right? And then you're just going to do that for the other piece, which I'm not going to do on camera. It is the exact same process. And when I finish, I will show you what to do next. Okay, so I'm matching up my two pieces, and I can see that like my center pleat wasn't the exact same size on both of them. So this is just like a small adjustment that I'm making just to kind of make sure they're even. That looks better. Sometimes when I do this bag, I don't have to do this at all, and then other times I'm like readjusting all the pleating. No biggie. Okay, but the rest of them looked good. That broke, so the rest of them looked good. So I'm going to fix this up a little bit. And okay, now when I put these two pieces on top of each other, I'm basically seeing that they are the same. If I pull on them, they're this corner to corner, the same length, and that the pleats are all matching each other, and that's what you want. And now at this point in the pattern, this is where I say, okay, go back, take your pieces, each of your exterior pieces, and fold them. This is just a fail-safe because you want to know where the center of each of these pieces is. You don't want it to be wrong later on. So you're going to fold them corner to corner and make sure that the center marking that you initially did, that center clip, is actually still in the center of your piece. Okay, so that's one, that's good. Center's good there. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. I'm going to fold it corner to corner, and then make sure that my little clip for the center is, if I pull on it, it's right there in the center of that piece, which it is. Okay. So it's time to baste these pleats into place. Okay, I have one basted already, and now I'm basting the other one, and I'm just kind of holding the one I already basted up to the second one, and as I'm basting, I'm just kind of eyeball comparing them and making sure that my pleats are staying where they're supposed to be and that they're staying similar, because I really want them to be symmetrical when I sew the bag together. We are now basted into place, both sets, and hopefully they're still matching up the way they're supposed to. Let's see. If I pin this corner here, and I pin this corner here, and then I kind of just lightly tug. Not too bad. My center one still isn't, actually it's pretty good. It's pretty good. The way you can tell is really by looking at the inside where the folds are lining up there. Okay. Not my best, but pretty good. Okay, we're attaching the casings now. And we have, you remember, you made a center snip earlier in the casings. So when you go to attach the casing, you should be able to just line up that center snip with the center snip of your main piece. And hopefully they will be, that will mean it will be in the actual center of the piece. If you have a magnetic snap on your casing instead of, you're not using the frame, you want to make sure as you do this that your magnetic snap piece hardware is under here, that it's on this side, not this side, not the outer exterior side here, but in between the two. And then you're going to just pin this in place right over those pleats. And this is why I say in the pattern that It might be harder to do this bag on a domestic than some other bags because you're going to be sewing out the layers of the casing plus all the pleats that you just made. This doesn't look quite right to me. So I'm going to just make sure that I'm well placed here. Okay. There we go. I mean, if it looks off, just, you want it to be in the center. Okay. All right, when I fold this, I should be seeing the casing fold over and meet itself on the other end. So it's centered. Okay. And then you want to do that for the other one. I'm going to go ahead and baste this. I'm not going to do the other one on camera. So once you have this set up against your piece, you want to baste this in place. Again, close to the very, very edge of the top of the exterior. Because you don't want this stitching to show later. All right. Okay. That's a casing basted to the bag. There we go. Okay. I just lost my other piece. There's that. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to baste on our connector pieces now to our two exteriors. And to do that, you're going to take your ruler and measure down. There it is. 3 inches down from the top of each side edge. So I'm just going like this, measuring down about 3 inches and marking there. Okay. And just as a cheater, I'm just going to, little cheater method here, I'm just going to, again, match up the corners, make sure that they are in line, and then I'm going to make my marking on the other side based on the marking that I just made on that side. So I'm matching them up. All right, so you're going to take this piece and you're going to take this piece, and with the bottom edge of this piece, you're going to, on the exterior side, line up against that marking that you made, that 3-inch marking, with about 1/4 of an inch, you can't see that, there we go, sticking out. So from this side it looks like this. From this side you can see the bottom edge is lined up with your marking. And then you're gonna do that here, about 1/4 of an inch sticking out. And there. And now you're just going to baste these into place. For when you sew the exterior of your bag. Okay, that's one. And comes the other one. Again, when you're basting, baste really close to the edge. You don't see your stitching later when you sew up the seams. Okay, that's that and that. Okay, so now we're at the point where we're going to attach our two pieces, our two exterior pieces together. So line up your corners. They're right sides together, obviously. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to sew with a 3/8 seam allowance down the side edge. Skip that box. Sew with a 3/8 inch side allowance down the bottom. Skip the box. Sew with a 3/8 inch side seam allowance up to the top to the other side. Okay. Here we go. To be, there we go. I'm going to back stitch a little bit just to secure that in place. About 3/8 of an inch here. And then back up the top. Now, if you had hardware in here because you were using D-rings or something rather than spring gate rings, just make sure it's facing away so you don't sew over it. Not an issue for me because I don't have hardware in there, but it's something you want to watch out for. So I sewed up the side and bottom seams, and before I go any further, I am going to make my markings 4 inches up from the bottom on both sides, and my snips. So that's 4 inches up, and then 4 inches up from that. And I'm just gonna snip in the seam allowance there, right where I mark those. And then I'm gonna do the same thing over here. That's 4 inches, and that's 4 inches. And then snip, snip. Okay, that's for after I box the corners. Now I'm gonna box the corners, line up my seams like that, slide them into place there, and pin that for sewing. There we go. And do that on the other side. And sew it up. I'm like literally pretty much halfway done this bag already. Okay. 3/8 inch seam allowance, about. You'll probably notice when I do these tutorials that I don't have any kind of seam guide, and I'm mostly, like everything else in my life, flying by the seat of my pants. Okay, that's one side sewn up, and then the other corner. Let's see. Okay. Excuse me. All right. And now, at those snips that you made on the side, this is where you're going to make your tucks. Okay. So you're going to find that snip and you're going to fold it outward like this. You're going to tuck that out. So it's tucked in on the exterior. And you're going to pin that in place. And you want to do that for all 4 of them. Like that. And then on this side as well. Eventually. There we go. Just open that seam up so you can do that and then tuck it like that. Now, I like to look inside the bag after I do this and make sure that the tuck that I made is still, that the seam inside is still lining up. So like right there, you can see this to this. I kind of like, just like you would when you're nesting seams for boxing your corners, I want that seam to line up. So I'm going to adjust it if I need to make sure that that's the case. And then the same thing on the bottom. And then I'm going to sew these up with basically you're sewing a 1/2 inch in from the fold and you're just sewing over the area of the seam. So from the one edge of the seam to the other. Make sure that that seam allowance is flat. There we go. And for added protection, I like to do another line of stitching behind that, just to make sure that you don't, sometimes you see the stitching pull on the other side. So just to be on the safe side, I like to do it twice. Okay. All right, so at this point in time, I think the entire exterior is complete. You don't need to turn it because you're going to be using it, you're going to be having it inside out for when you attach it to the lining, but if you want to turn it, you can turn it and look and see how it's coming along. Yeah, it's pretty pleaty, pretty slouchy, right? Okay, so now we're going to move on to the lining.